The baby is back to sleep now. But that's a good segue because the first theme of books is on um, child rearing. I feel like a lot of new parents, we've been collecting a lot of books and reading a lot about pregnancy, childbirth, and child rearing, parenting. So, um, there's a few books that we've read about that. I have some with my partner, some on my own. This one I just finished is called The Whole Brain Child. It's by Daniel J. Siegel, MD, and Tina Payne Bryson, PhD. It's basically taking the science of neurology and applying it to parenting, teaching parents how they can use an understanding of the brain and brain development and apply it to parenting. And it's got some tips and tricks. It's a little bit repetitive at some times, but they do try to make it accessible to kids and to try to teach kids, help parents teach kids to be reflective about their own neural processes, basically. And so, yeah, it was kind of helpful. I think it's more oriented towards older kids, so maybe it'll come in handy later. This is The Whole Brain Child. This is another one also that I read together with my partner. It's called Your Self-Confident Baby. It's by Magda Gerber. And she is Hungarian who came to the United States and develops this system of child rearing she calls RIE, or resources for infant educarers. This one is really oriented towards people who are caregivers of infants. And so it's a little bit dogmatic. She definitely has things to do and things not to do according to her system. Some of them are definitely very difficult for new parents. Like, she encourages us to just leave the baby, let the baby cry, and definitely in favor of things like letting the baby go to sleep on their own, which has definitely fallen out of favor, I think, lately. But other things are very, I think, in tune with, I think, our values, like, parenting with respect and informing the child what's going to be happening, and being clear about what you want and don't want, and parenting with respect. So some things to at least inform parenting, if not, to follow by the book, Your Self-Confident Baby. And then this one also I just finished not too long ago is called Rad Dad. It is a compilation of blog posts from the Daddy Dialectic blog and articles from the Rad Dad zine. And it's old now. This thing is almost 10 years old now. Copyright 2011. The editors are Tomas Moniz and Jeremy Adam Smith, and Tomas Moniz does a lot of the contributions, but it's also got contributions from other activists like Jeff Chang, Ta-Nehisi Coates, Raj Patel, and they have some unique contributions. A lot of it is kind of fighting the culture war. The kids are very, very early indoctrinated with consumerism and, a lot of the things that are really stink about, capitalist culture, like individualism and competitiveness and stuff like that. So a lot of it is how do you parent in a way that positions your kid to resist that, which is, I think, useful. But it talks about other things too, like racism, and a lot about gender and how do you resist the gender binary and stuff like that. I really like what it says. There's this book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, and it does like everything about what pregnancy and childbirth and stuff like that is like, but it doesn't talk about, well, how do you raise a kid that is in a society that's racist and capitalist and patriarchal. And that's kind of where this one takes off. So this one is really good for activists, especially fathers, and it has a whole spectrum of different types of fathers, from the sperm donor to trans fathers and fathers of color. This one is really good, even if it's a little bit dated in just terms of the time markers that are, you know, that are in this book. And then another thing about parenting that is the kids' books. So actually, a lot of the reading that I've been doing, that my partner and I have been doing, we've been doing as a family, has been of children's literature. A lot of the books that we've been acquiring lately, have been children's literature. But one of the things that really concerns me is, who are the people that are writing these books? What are the ideas they're putting forth in these books, especially ones that are like considered classics and not really questioned. Same thing with the music too. I'm very concerned about that. So I started researching, of course, and one of these really classic children's books writers is Margaret Wise Brown, right? She wrote Good Night Moon and many other books. And so I started researching her, and it's a very interesting story. She died very young. But she also she provided a lot of leadership in the arena of developing children's literature into what it is now, at least in the United States. And part of that project was recruiting other writers to write children's books. And so she was writing all the big writers of the time, you know, the John Steinbecks and the Hemingways and whatnot, and nobody got back to her. They didn't value it as a literary project, except Gertrude Stein. And Gertrude Stein wrote this book that Margaret Wise Brown recruited her to write, called The World is Round. So I was fascinated by that, because I've got some Gertrude Stein over here in the fiction and literature section, and also because when I was in Pittsburgh, I was able to visit Gertrude Stein's the house where she grew up in or was born into. And of course, there's an Oakland connection to Gertrude Stein too, and of course Paris too. So yeah, that's why I wanted to get this one, and so I was able to read this one aloud to the baby. And this was a book. This is actually a kind of a very artistic book. Check it out. It's called. It's got the rose. It's a rose. Is a rose on the outside, and the it's printed on pink paper with purple lettering, and these illustrations are by Clement Hurd, which is the same artist that did the illustrations for Goodnight Moon. He had a lot of collaboration with Margaret Wise Brown. And it's very, very Gertrude Stein, and it is definitely very oral. I think it has to be read aloud. It doesn't really make much sense if you just try to read it silently. It got really criticized as not being really good children's literature, but I think it's very I think it is in tune with a child's concerns and thought patterns. It's got some things that are maybe strange for kids, like the devil makes an appearance, but the art is really simple and beautiful, and the story is also simple but nice. The ending is kind of abrupt, but I don't know. I think it was a good little read, and probably once he gets old enough to start understanding more, books with larger blocks of text, we'll maybe give it another read. It has a lot of musicality in the prose. There's some poetry in there too, but it's mostly prose. So, it was an interesting read. The World is Round by Gertrude Stein. So we're going to pause here and pick up with the next thing.